Across 9 films and decades of conflict, Sheev Palpatine served as the silent architect of the Star Wars saga. He operated as both the Republic's most trusted leader and its most lethal enemy, engineering a galactic war where he controlled every move on the board. While possessing vast supernatural abilities, his most effective tool was the manipulation of the democratic process. He realized a system of government is only as strong as the people's faith in it. Before his rise, the Galactic Republic was a web of paralyzed bureaucracy. Impulses from the central government stalled before reaching the Outer Rim, leaving worlds neglected. Palpatine accurately diagnosed this rot, making his lies about security feel like a necessary cure. His strategy relied on the fact that an exhausted public will often choose a comfortable lie over a difficult truth. He didn't seize power by force. He waited for the galaxy to hand it to him. This strategy began with the blockade of his own homeworld, Naboo. As the hidden mastermind behind the Trade Federation's invasion, Palpatine created a localized disaster to force the Senate's hand. He allowed his own citizens to endure occupation and starvation. By ensuring the suffering was visible and tragic, he guaranteed that the political fallout on Coruscant would be immediate. During the crisis, he leveraged his position as Naboo's senator to oust Supreme Chancellor Valorum. He presented himself as the only leader with the personal stakes required to cut through the red tape and save his people. By the time the invasion was resolved, Palpatine had been elected Supreme Chancellor. He used the trauma of his own planet to secure a seat of power he intended to keep for the rest of his life. Once in office, he expanded the scale of the conflict. He ensured that regardless of which side won a battle, he remained the beneficiary. The Clone Wars followed this logic. This diagram shows how Palpatine secretly funded the Separatist rebellion while simultaneously managing the Republic's defense. He sat at the apex of both armies, directing a war where the outcome was determined before the first shot was fired. Hidden within the Republic's own troops was a biological override, the inhibitor chip. This chip ensured that at any moment, the soldiers could be forced to turn on their Jedi commanders, transforming the galaxy's protectors into targets. The war functioned as a meat grinder for the Republic's institutions. While the Jedi and the Senate focused on the fighting, Palpatine used the ongoing violence to justify a massive centralizing of power in the Chancellor's office. As the war dragged on, he exploited the public's desire for safety to dismantle the Republic's legal safeguards. This grant of emergency powers outlines the transition. He obtained direct oversight of the banking sector, assumed command of the military, and removed term limits. Each change was framed as a vital tool to win the war. He maintained that these powers were a burden he would lay down as soon as peace was restored. However, in the history of power, authority granted during an emergency is rarely returned voluntarily. When he finally declared himself emperor, the Senate responded with thunderous applause. The delegates were not forced into submission. They voted to surrender their oversight in exchange for the promise of security. The Republic did not fall to an outside invader. It was hollowed out through its own legal channels, proving that a democracy can be dismantled from within if the architect is patient enough to let the people choose their own chains. For over 2 decades, Palpatine ruled a galaxy defined by fear. He had transformed the Jedi's greatest warrior into a broken enforcer and replaced the Senate with a military machine. His success was built on a worldview where every interaction is transactional. He believed that greed, fear, and ambition were the only forces that drove sentient beings, making everyone he met a tool to be used or discarded. This matrix shows the limits of his strategic mind. While he could perfectly predict how people would react to anger or greed, he had a significant blind spot. He could not account for selfless connection, the one motivation that does not follow a transactional logic. This omission ended his first reign. He predicted that Darth Vader would remain loyal out of fear and self-interest. He did not foresee a father choosing to save his son, Luke, even at the cost of his own life. Decades later, his resurrected form faced the same error. He viewed their bond as merely a power source to be drained, ignoring the possibility that their willingness to sacrifice for one another would provide the energy to destroy him. Palpatine's rise shows how easily a democracy is exploited by someone who understands its flaws. But his eventual destruction serves as a reminder that a system built entirely on self-interest will eventually collapse when it encounters the one human element it cannot calculate: